While John Carter was cryogenically frozen, the system of the hospital searched for the perfect place. 16 years pass, and the hospital finds it, the planet Zephyr. The teleportation process activates and travels straight to Zephyr in an instant. The systems of the hospital awake John from his cryosleep. The hospital initiated its landing sequence onto the island of Zephyr. A problem arose when landing the hospital. The landing region had a blizzard, causing the hospital to lose some control and crash onto its side. Damage to the hull was severe, but the internals survived just fine. John stepped out of the hospital after the snowstorm, looking around the area. There was a massive skyscraper to his left and a ravine below where he crashed. John scavenged the nearby area, finding an abandoned entrance to an underground area. This area was inside the ravine he crashed on. It was an abandoned laboratory. The place had some devices still on display, such as the B6 hover device and its prototype. It also contained a massive energy core of sorts, labeled as the Source. It was contained in a large storage unit with 4 separate tubes connecting it to the walls. These tubes run beneath the ground for large distances to many areas around the island. The tubes connected to several machines known as reactors. Some of these were functional, yet unpowered. Others were entirely dysfunctional. The ultimate purpose for all of these were unknown, but according to the diagram in the abandoned laboratory, 4 reactors along with the core reactor need to be active to initiate its purpose. John decided to reside in the laboratory for his stay on Zephyr. The island on Zephyr offered much to its civilization. Locations include the following: a smaller village besides the entrance to the abandoned laboratory, the castle in the middle of the island, being a castle with smaller houses within its walls, Construction City, which comprises only the city hall and 1 other house, though much more is planned to be built here. The Unknown Disaster in the northern part of the island. All that is known about this place was that it was once a bustling city, but has been destroyed long ago, with whoever was responsible for its destruction leaving their mark with a purple flag. By far the most remarkable location on the island was the amusement park that was built on the sea, Pufferfish Land. This park had much to discover, such as the Southern Pufferfish Park and the Aquifer Lagoon water park that was underneath the southern part. Pufferfish Park had many rides, such as the confusing puffer coaster, the dropper, Ferris wheel, and many more. The Aquifer Lagoon was constructed under the water of the sea. It was complete with all walls being sturdy glass to give the best and one-of-a-kind experience when in the water park. Future sections of the park, including Wild Wonderland and Beanland, are currently under construction, but soon enough will open to the public. And in the middle of it all stood a massive and towering statue of a pufferfish. The most successful company on the island, however, Inca Kola, also is located within the sea. Inca Kola has been serving people of the island the most refreshing and finest drink for ages. Besides the potential health risks of the drink, Inca Kola has been Zephian's favorite delicacy. This Inca Kola factory in the sea is essentially a large-scale cube installed beneath the water, powered by hydroelectricity from the water let in from one of the walls. Inca Kola factory is connected to the mainland with a road so that the delivery is never an issue for the company. The final thing that caught John's eye on the island was the southeastern region. There was a massive structure, looking as if it had been abandoned and left to collect dust. After John did thorough investigations on the southeastern device, he had a hypothesis. The device was most likely a death ray of sorts that was going to be used against someone. Exactly who it was still a mystery to him, but whoever it was, they had won before the people ever got to use the weapon. Weeks pass, and John befriends the people of Zephyr. John noticed something in the sky one day. It was a small speck of purple. It hadn't been there before, but it seemed like it was nearing every day. Could it be them? The Zaters that took away his home? John refused to let them take away his home again, so he prepared to fight back. The death ray in the southeast had to be the answer to this, but it has been offline for who knows how long. John started to plan a way to reactivate the weapon. The speck of purple in the sky became closer and closer. The fleet of Zaters were closing in fast. John figured out that the reactors around the island were all connected to the core inside the abandoned laboratory. The unknown purpose of these reactors must be to power the death ray, since the death ray consisted of 4 spires, all surrounding the central and largest spire. The 4 spires around the center one were powered by 4 reactors, leaving the center to be powered by the largest reactor, the core reactor. John used the blueprints and parts in the abandoned laboratory to create power sources of core. This would float with the B6 hover device over to a functional reactor. They then would attach to the reactor and inject the power source into the reactor. This was done to 4 of the reactors from around the map. The only last step John needed to fulfill was powering the core reactor. The Zetas were now closer than ever. John was running low on time, panicking to power the core reactor. Some of the people on the island vouched for what he was doing. These people were then hired by John, birthing what is known as the Mansion People. The Mansion People construct a base just north of the Death Ray. The base was installed within the wall of a mountain, but was too classified to be exposed. They then set up a piping system that would continually pipe water from the sea to the top of the mountain. The water would cascade down and create a waterfall to block the entrance of the Mansion People's Death Ray bunker. Death Ray operations would be run in the bunker, along with preparations to decimate the Zetas once and for all. Consequently, from the waterfall, the surrounding area became extremely lively from water, becoming known as fertile farlands. Pufferfish Land opened their next new location, Wild Wonderland. The place was complete with exhibits for polar bears, foxes, volcanic creatures, panda bears, pigs, and an aquarium. A new underwater volcanic zone was discovered, although it seemed dormant. A cruise ship was also constructed alongside a new dock. The ship set sail every so often, giving people the experience of a lifetime. The ship would tour around the sea, showing remains of ancient cities, the underwater volcanic zone, a complete trip of Pufferfish Land, and a tour of the Inca Cola factory. The time had come. Just as the Zetas had entered the atmosphere and got even closer than they had ever had before, John powered and activated the core reactor. The Death Ray shook the ground as it became fully active. The power reserves for the Death Ray were completely built up. All they needed was to time the shot on the Zeta mothership. The Zetas were flying straight down, and John gave the signal. The Death Ray glowed and fired an immense beam of energy straight through the mothership. The destruction had completely killed the Zetas as they crashed onto the island. John and the Zephians had ended the Zetas in an instant. The crash site of the Zetas was known as the Graveyard. The fire from the Zetas' demise stayed ablaze for weeks. But as the one issue dropped, another one arose. The Death Ray was only made to be fired once, so after it fired, it suffered heavy damages. Along with the Death Ray becoming damaged, the energy leaked into the surrounding area. The ground became hard and solid like granite, while also having a purple tint like the energy source. Even some rock formations grew, which consisted of a slightly less concentrated, yet still very powerful form of the energy source that was used for the Death Ray. This region became known as Death Ray Devastation. The main and most impactful consequence of the Death Ray was known as the Internal Storm. The strange properties of the energy source that the Death Ray used interacted with the atmosphere in an unexpected way. The outburst of energy attracted all clouds on Zephyr to the island, providing a consistent and seemingly unending storm onto the island. The Mansion People were unaffected by these consequences from using the Death Ray. They accepted them, but another group of Zephians refused to accept this. This group established 3 storm-eliminating stations around the island. They then powered these stations and erected towers that would attempt to absorb the remnant Death Ray energy from the atmosphere to rid the storm. But the group didn't stop there. They noticed that the Mansion People were getting too comfortable with their new profound leader. Their leader, John Carter, was becoming corrupt with his power over the people. The Mansion People pushed their boundaries, saying they would have the right for more control due to saving the island. They would say that if it wasn't for them using the Death Ray to destroy the Zetas, nobody would be here at all. The small village beside the abandoned laboratory started to protest against the Mansion People, setting up anti-Mansion People signs outside their homes. They refused to let the Mansion People take over their island. The Mansion People couldn't afford to have anyone turning against them. The Death Ray was repaired and was powered again using the energy source chunks from the nearby purple landscape. Death Ray refractors were set up floating with the B6 hover device and were capable of absorbing and redirecting a low-scale energy blast from the Death Ray. These Death Ray refractors were set up to refract a blast from the Death Ray and to send the blast right where it needed to go. John ordered the Death Ray refractors to be set in alignment with the small village that was protesting. Although it may be true that the Mansion people saved the island, the Storm Eliminators were still against the unreasonable corruption they had. They developed a new power against the Mansion people, the Metacore. On a separate note, Pufferfishland opened up their fourth part of the park, Beanland. Specializing in delicious meals for the family, Beanland mainly is known for its massive Biggie's Beans restaurant. The extensive menu guarantees something delicious for everyone. The Mansion people were fed up by the small village's protests. John initiated the plan and blasted a death ray beam. The beam was absorbed and redirected towards the small village, obliterating the town in an instant. Not a single person survived, but it was for the greater good of the Mansion people's rule. Due to the weak construction and renovations of the Death Ray, devastation from its last blast was much worse than anticipated. The entire region from where the Death Ray was located was overtaken and became solid and purple. As the Eternal Storm subsided from the help of the storm eliminating stations, the tensions of the Mansion people and the Metacore grew. The castle was overtaken by the Mansion people to become Mansion Monarchy. Along with this, the Mansion people developed a new military base just west of Mansion Monarchy. Drones were constructed to store the Death Ray energy source within them. They then had miniature Death Rays installed below them, allowing them to fire energy beams at a moment's notice. Though something very strange was located beside the mansion base, a being trapped under the ice. The being was massive in size, and the icy snow covering it seemed to be slowly moving away from it, uncovering more and more of the being as time passes. The Mansion people run investigations on the being, though none were too extensive due to their preoccupation in the war. The Metacore took a more traditional militaristic route. They had a base in the southwest equipped with tanks. They also had a northwestern military camp next to the graveyard that would store their explosives. Their aircraft was stationed on their sea base, and their final and largest base located in the northern mountains, the Metacore headquarters. Battles broke out and were fought relentlessly. But during all the conflict, the cruise ship planned an escape from the island for good. Many Zephians were desperate to get away from the Mansion people's control, so the ship was completely filled with people and set sail to never return. On the bright side, Construction City has grown significantly, becoming the most populated place on the island. Along with this, the Mansion People's Science Branch was creating a new laboratory using experimental technology. The lab would be generated from the environment, setting its completion to be done within the next few months. Pufferfishland started their final expansion to the park, the Tech Towers. These would be futuristic hotels people can stay at while having fun at Pufferfishland. A total of 4 towers are planning to be built. Each tower sat on an artificial cloud with a rocket booster and a stabilizer to keep them up in the air. The war ends, leaving the Mansion people victorious over the island. The Metacore strived to win, but couldn't against the power of the Mansion people. To prevent anyone from escaping the reign of the Mansion people, they would need to trap everyone. But even if the border controls were set around the island, it would never completely stop everyone from escaping. They had to make it impossible. An alien machine was discovered under the sea. The device seemed to be salvaged from a different alien race, not from this planet. John recognized the technology. Could this device be the reason why Zaders were after Zandromnians? The device was capable of generating insane amounts of energy, along with the familiar teleportation technology. John studied the device, leading him to his master plan. John flew B6 hover devices over to the alien technology, attached them to the sides, and activated the technology. The device worked exactly as expected. With the reliable teleportation technology from the Zandromnians, John was able to teleport away all of the water from the sea they were in. Surrounding the island was barren landscape that stretched farther than the eye could see. It was the dead ocean. Had John gone mad, or was this idea perfect for his reign of the island? Nobody was able to escape. Even those that did wouldn't make it far. The drought brought many problems. The Inca-Cola factory didn't have water to power it, thus forcing the factory to shut down. Most importantly, the people of the island were entirely trapped under the rule of the Mansion people. The Metacore was gone, and the Zephians had nowhere to go. The disappearance of the sea, however, brought many new discoveries, such as ancient ruins under Pufferfish Land and the bones of extinct sea creatures. Suddenly, the ground from the droughted area shook. The mountainside next to what used to be the underwater volcanic zone broke open. From the rubble of the destruction extended an antenna-like structure. The antenna made a low rumbling noise, causing the ground to shake once more. 5 ancient tower-like structures arose from the ground around the droughted ocean. Almost instantly, the area around each tower began to grow plant life. These life-giving towers were essentially reviving what used to be the sea. Along with the regrowth of the environment arose ancient structures within the ground. These ancient places revealed unknown history to even the native Zephians. These ruins were built on the ground like the ocean was never there to begin with. Strangely, not a single scripture says anything about the ocean at all. What the scriptures did depict was their discoveries and inventions for growing of plant life. The society had created 5 life towers surrounding the area they lived in. These towers would exert a green smog over the area, converting the surrounding area into whatever type of plant life they were chosen to create, thus terraforming the society's environment into whatever they choose. Perhaps the life tower's smog started to have side effects on the environment itself, essentially giving a very rudimentary consciousness to the land. This would explain why the land had the urge to revive itself by releasing the towers once more after the sea of water disappeared. Perhaps Zaders ended their society by doing the opposite of what John did. The Zaders could have drowned the ancient society by using the Zandromedan teleportation device to teleport a sea of water over their civilization. The Zaders may have been against them because of their discovery to easily replicate plant life extremely fast with extreme precision, hence their advancements could pose a threat to the Zader Empire in the future. This history uncovered about the island was interesting, but not exactly used for the Mansion people. Perhaps expanding their empire to new lands was an option, but it still didn't seem exactly useful to them. The Mansion People's science branch had fully generated their new lab. The generation succeeded almost entirely except for an excess of area that was generated on the side of the lab. The place would be named Southern Laboratory by John Carter. Out of the blue, a very small town develops just south of the old Metacore base. The town boldly set up anti-Mansion People propaganda, activating the drones from the Mansion base to take care of it. Once the drones arrived, however, they noticed something. The town was completely fake. All houses were setups for the drones to come near. In an instant, the town detonates and explodes. All of the remaining drones are demolished, leaving the Mansion People defenseless. Although this threatened the Mansion People, it mostly just angered John Carter. After the event, John immediately started back mining operations in the Deathray Devastation to gather more of the power source for his new and familiar weapon of choice, missiles. As expected, the life towers started to spew out their green smog. Growth of life spread everywhere from the new smog, growing forests all over the valley that was once the sea. A jungle grew in the south of the valley, followed by a pine forest in the west, a swamp in the center, plains in the south, and hints of a thickly wooded biome in the north by the oasis. A new nightclub was constructed in the snow biome, just next to the hospital ship. The place became popular with the locals quickly. Pufferfish Land has become officially completed after its final 4th tech tower was constructed. Though Pufferfish Land has stopped expanding, the fun is never planned to end. Unfortunately, the Wild Wonderland Park at Pufferfish Land was closed due to renovations and repair to the park, but should be back open shortly. The construction for the fleet of missiles under the Mansion People has begun, scaring the Zephians of the island. Hope has really been lost. Suddenly, something was happening by the unknown disaster. The ground began to split apart, crumbling the ruined buildings, but the split ground began to reveal something. It was a massive door opening, showing a hidden Metacore base, right under the Mansion People's noses the whole time. The base was complete with 4 rockets prepared to take off into space. The Mansion People couldn't let the Metacore win. They beat them once, they can do it again. The Mansion people had a much better plan in mind. If nobody wanted to follow in the lead of the Mansion people, then they would leave them for a better place where only they can rule, the moon. Research was done, finding that this moon was unusual compared to anything John has ever seen. The moon contained a material known as cyanium. This material was stronger than any power source John has ever seen, even more so than the power source that the Death Ray used. Cyanium would provide so much incredible power to the Mansion people that absolutely nothing could get in their way. All they have to do is get to the moon first. The Medicorps had the same idea. Getting to the moon meant getting cyanium. Getting cyanium meant that nothing could rule over them, and meant that the Mansion people wouldn't have it. The Mansion people dedicated to using their newly constructed missiles as anti-air weapons to prevent anyone leaving except for them. As much as the Medicorps wanted to fight, it would be too risky due to having the Mansion people missiles against them. Many other places made rockets of their own, but not everyone wanted to get cyanium. Most just desperately needed to escape. The nightclub was converted into a ship, having locals aboard to escape from the madness. Construction City had finally become entirely complete, thus the new name, Complete City. They even converted one of their buildings into a space shuttle to escape. Pufferfishland developed multiple escape ships of their own. The ships were named Puffer Pods and would hold residents near Pufferfishland for an escape. No fights broke out, so the tension on the island didn't drop even a little. On a separate note, Wild Wonderland collapsed during renovations. The area below was an ancient city built on top of small volcanic grounds, so when the park toppled over, lava bursted out. This fact wasn't helped either by the volcanic biome from the Wild Wonderland having its pipage broken, further increasing the lava in the area. The air was tense. Suddenly, after days of nothing, the nightclub rocket launched, taking their chances of escape. The Mansion people held up their word and launched 2 missiles at the ship, destroying the nightclub and causing it to crash right through the side of the Complete City Capital Tower. Nobody else dared to leave, except for the bold Medicorps. Their rockets all launched at once, leaving the missiles to have to choose which ship they take down. The Mansion people launched a fleet of missiles straight towards the ships. The Medicorps ships activated their anti-missile systems, but 2 of the ships were struck before they could even fight back. One ship crashed nearby in a plains biome. The other crashed in the northern mountains where the old Medicorps headquarters resided. The Medicorps panicked. 2 ships remained. They successfully destroyed the missiles targeted at them and charged into the sky, but something was wrong. The ships both shut off their rockets. The Mansion people had hacked into their ships from spies aboard the ships. Luckily, the backup systems activated, bringing the thrusters back online, but it was already too late. Missiles struck the final 2 ships, sending them to crash back onto the island. The Medicorps had lost for good. The Mansion people had no threats left. It was time. The thrusters below the renovated castle ship activated. The ship started to climb into the sky, faster and faster. The Mansion people would pursue greatness and reign as victorious rulers. The system picked up a high energy nearby. Right next to the ship was a gleam of purple. John Carter pushed his crew out of the way to see for himself. John squinted, looking closer. The gleam flashed abruptly, obliterating the ship with a shockwave in an instant. A fiery inferno rained from the devastation of the castle ship. The purple gleam broke a tear through the space-time fabric of the reality, killing the entirety of the Mansion people in the process. The reality was being torn open somehow. The people of the island couldn't be more happy that the Mansion people's reign was over, but couldn't be more terrified from what the tear in the sky was. But most people assured themselves that whatever next wouldn't be as bad as what they had faced the past few years. The Zephians awaited for what they would face next, preparing for the worst. Some people were walking near the old mansion base when they noted something. The massive being that was trapped under the ice now started to move. Very subtle movements in the right arm of the being started to occur. Slowly, ice started to crack. The people looked closer. The right arm punched through the ice above it, lifting right into the air. The arm was massive, yet artificial looking. Suddenly, there was an intense flash of light.